And the sports show is on the air. Welcome. Mike, Max, Patrick Royce, Lou Nanny, and Sid Hartman. Yes, they look like twins.
I dressed
wow,
them
you guys, how do you do this? Do you call each other ahead of time or what?
The difference is, we bought these jackets. You get all your stuff free for
the You would too if you could. Hey, the Twins played. We got the drafts coming up. Let's start with the drafts. We got two guys here that used to draft players. What's draft week like for a general manager?
Well, it certainly changed from the days I was around. And also, it's all changed. I remember I went up to watch Bud Grant team play in the Grey Cup in Toronto. Game got called on account of fog. And I took a train from Toronto to Chicago to cover the draft, and they had a room like this with about 20 tables, and that was the draft.
Which, for the NFL? For the NBA or for the NFL?
NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Louis, you and I were talking, though, coming out here. I was asking you some questions about, what it's like when as you prepare for the draft and draft week. And I said, like, does your phone just ring off the hook? And you said it's not like that. You know by now what deals are in place?
Well, especially the way things are going today compared to what they were when I was drafting players. Now they have a scouting combine that was taking place in Toronto the first week in June. They bring in the top 100 prospects. All the teams get to interview them. They all go through testing, which they never used to do before. They do physical testing, and so they spend a lot of time with the picks. And before the combine starts, each of the clubs has their draft meeting somewhere. Some will have it in their hometown. Some will go California, Florida, wherever. They'll spend 3, 4, 5 days together going over the draft list and getting their final draft list. So when it comes to draft week like the NHL has it this week, essentially all the work is done. Now the only thing you're looking at is whether you're going to move draft picks, trade players, trade draft picks and players. So they won't go into New Jersey till about Wednesday and spend Wednesday and Thursday there.
For the NHL.
For the NHL, and they'll draft Friday. And this year they changed it. It used to be just the first draw on the first day for the last 5-10 years. It was on TV for 3 hours or so. Now they're drafting all 6 rounds on Friday. So they cut the time back from 15 minutes to 8 minutes in the first round. And after that, they'll do the other 5 rounds right after it.
Louis, baseball and NHL drafts are very similar, except, of course, you can't trade in baseball. But the amount of information available before a draft, the amount of information in baseball is unbelievable. And I got to think, when you were drafting hockey, you knew Bobby Smith was the guy you wanted. But everything after, I would think teams had their own guys a lot more back then, that weren't as well known as everybody is now.
Well, what happened years ago, probably in the early 80s, we got Central Scouting.
Yeah.
So the NHL put Central Scouting in, and they compile a list. But I would never show my scouts that list until the end. I'd want their own list. And all of us teams had scouts in Canada, United States, and we'd have 1 or 2 in maybe in Finland or Sweden. Now they have scouts all over. They have way more scouts than we ever had. Yep. And as you said, the information now is just much more plentiful than it was back in the 70s and 80s when I was doing it.
It's amazing how different these teams rate players, though.
Oh yeah. Well,
some clubs will have a guy number 1, and then the other club will have somebody 6. I'll never forget when Vinny Serrato was with the Washington Redskins. I called him up about some Minnesota Viking. I forgot who it was. I said, "How'd you have him rated?" 6. And
you mean 6th rounder?
I mean, he would tell me the truth. I know. I had no reason not to tell me the truth.
But the difference between the NHL and baseball is you're so much more projection. When you're
long term.
The easiest draft in the world is the NFL draft.
Yeah, by far. You got
3 years of information on these guys at most of them at a high level of competition. You're trying to take an 18-year-old high school kid.
Okay, and let me, because here's the other way baseball is different. You lose them in baseball if you don't sign them.
Right.
These young guys. Do you like that rule, or do you like being able to retain them?
Well, I like being able to retain them. And now you can retain them less than we could before. Before, we were able to keep them for 4 years if they went through college, and then if they didn't sign with us, they'd have to wait another year before they could get free. Now, after 4 years after you draft them, you better sign them or they're free. So they have less control over them than we had in the past, but they still got pretty good control. And you need it. You're like he said, you're picking kids that are 17 and 18. And you have to make judgments on players that aren't even physically mature.
And that's where this interesting, for some guys, comes into play. For Nate Schmidt, guys like that don't get drafted and end up going like this. They end up being free agents in a much better spot than guys that got drafted.
Well, like the Wild don't have a number one, right?
No, but they got others. But what he said is right, because if you're a free agent and you don't get drafted and you're a good player, now you got more than one team. You can pick and choose where you're going. But more than that, the first-round guys will get first-round money. The other guys get different money. All the free agents that are good get first-round money. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you happen to fall into that crack, take a break, come back. You're watching the sports show. Stay with us. There it is, locally owned, nationally known, and not far from Target Field. J.D. Hoyt's perfect place this summer before you go to the ball game or anytime you're in downtown Minneapolis. Welcome back to the sports show. Sydney, the NBA draft. I've watched a lot of these workouts. I'll tell you one thing that's changed over the years, too, and I'm not saying that the players that anybody ever worked out were out of shape, but these kids they bring in now are machines. They are so sculpted and so physically fit.
Well, here's what happens. They all have agents. Most of them have the agents while they're playing, and they're getting taken care of. And the minute they're through, they go to Florida, they go someplace, and they work out, and they're ready.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the truth of the matter is most of them, like Mbakwe had a $2 million insurance policy in case he got hurt. Where would he get the money to pay for a $2 million insurance cover?
Well, he would have been better off getting hurt.
Yeah,
$2 million. He would have been better off getting that $2 million because he's going to be a second rounder, which is no guaranteed money. No guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I don't think their attendance. You know, these basketball players are going to be drafted. I don't think their spring semester attendance is real good.
No.
Once the basketball season ends, I think a lot of them miss finals.
They are out of there, man. They are out of there.
They call them taking incompletes.
Well,
so was the Miami Heat good for the NBA winning it this year, Louis? Or you like that kind of dynasty?
Well, I think, you know, it's
your team down there.
It's controversial.
It's not our team. It's your team.
I like San Antonio down in that series. I would like to see the old guys come back and win one more for Duncan.
You can bet those Kentucky guys never went to a class after they qualified for
the draft.
Maybe not just Kentucky guys. Maybe everybody.
Yeah.
But it's you know, they had the perfect storm there though for the Heat, is they had big ratings, and the reason is LeBron is now with Tiger. But LeBron might be the number one sports celebrity in the country, or he or Tiger. But you had the perfect. You got half the country wanting them to lose.
Yep.
So people who don't even care about basketball are watching to see the Heat lose, and then there's the other half that want LeBron to win. So I get a kick out of all these stuff. Oh, basketball has surpassed baseball, blah, blah, blah. Well, if it was Indiana and San Antonio, how do you think the ratings would have been?
Yeah.
Instead of a 24, you would have got a 6.
Yeah, so in essence, this was great for basketball.
It certainly was. It was a great series. And it was a tremendous series all the way through. I mean, Miami is a fun team to watch.
But this is why the Minnesota Timberwolves are, you know, they can model themselves after San Antonio, but not Miami. You can never go out and buy your way out of it from a small market. You can't attract LeBron James or anybody that good.
Well, you aren't going to get a situation like they had. In fact, that situation is different. They tried to do the same thing in baseball. Charlie Finley tried to sell all those guys to the Red Sox, and it wasn't allowed many years ago. But you get 3 stars like LeBron and the other
Wade
guys.
and Bosh.
But you know what, Sidney? Those other 2 guys didn't turn out to be as good as they were supposed to. Chris Bosh is mediocre, and Dwayne Wade is a shadow of what him.
Yep.
You know, I think LeBron might have won a title with a worse surrounding cast than Michael Jordan ever had in his 6 years.
I agree
6 that he won.
I don't think there's any doubt about it.
But you also get a Ray Allen that wants to play there. That you know, once you get that going, now he makes one shot, pays his salary for the whole year, right there.
How about Miller?
Yep.
Who's going to retire? Mike Miller, and he started for them.
Well, they would run about 4 different three-point shooters out there
Yep.
and see. Battier was sitting on the bench, and all of a sudden,
Boom, boom, boom.
All of a sudden, well, Allen can't make a shot, and a couple of Chalmers, these other guys can't. We'll try him, and he makes 5. So.
Do you think Pat Riley is the key to that thing, or what?
He's a good guy.
Well, do you think it's because of him they were able to get these 3 guys together, or just those 3 guys together want to play together?
I'm sure he put it together. I mean, he had to be able to pay the money, and he's a pretty good general manager. He's done a great job down there in Miami since he's been there.
Miami Beach and the NBA were made for each other too. All right, a lot of glitz and a lot of
Absolutely.
and a lot of.
And he's putting together 2 titles down there. I mean, 2 teams, 2 different teams. Shaquille O'Neal and
Yeah, they did good ratings.
yeah.
Thing is, San Antonio had the game won.
Yeah, make a free throw.
5.4 seconds. The coach blew it.
I'm not.
You mean
Got
game
Parker
6 you're
on the
talking about?
bench.
I don't
And
think the
Duncan.
coach blew it. I think Ginobili and Leonard blew it by missing free throws. Make a free throw, you win the game.
Yeah.
Take a break, come back, stay with us.
Well, the NBA.
Yeah, there it is, out in Minneapolis. Stop on by. See Bruce Bonine, Charlie, the whole gang. Say hi to Wayne if you're in there, Mr. Hansen. They're all around the floor. Great place to buy a vehicle because they have great vehicles right off of General Mills Boulevard in 394. Welcome back to the Sports Show. We cover the NBA. Sid, normally I like to start with you each segment so that you can kind of set the tone for us. But if you'll forgive me just for a second, Louis, the NHL. Is this going to go 7 games?
I think it is, although I just heard the Bergeron's definitely not going to play tomorrow night, and that worries me. However,
about Taves?
Yeah, Taves might be out, which somewhat balances. But the difference is Chicago's got more power up front than Boston. Bergeron missing is like one of the key 4 forwards. And you look at Chicago, they got a 6 or 7. So I still think Boston could beat him there tomorrow night, and then Chicago should win it at home.
The goaltending's not that great in this.
Oh, it's been good. I mean,
Think so?
Crawford hasn't been as good as Rask, but he only gave up 1 goal last night. But when you look at it, outside that 6-5 game, there was hardly any scoring. The goaltending was terrific on both sides.
Again, Patrick, very good for the sport. The ratings have been up. The lockout is unaffected.
Yeah, they've been good. Hey, you get to listen to Doc Emmerich. What the heck? Even if you don't like hockey, you get to listen to the best announcer in sports.
The doctor.
I remember the Blackhawks and the North Stars played a playoff game on an afternoon in Chicago because there was something at the night in the stadium, so they couldn't play at night. And ever saying Bill Wirtz had a big crowd there, a decent crowd, he says, if we play this game tonight, we wouldn't draw nobody. But the thing I'm trying to point out is young Bill Wirtz's kid,
Rocky.
that franchise was no good until the old man died. They weren't on TV. They weren't promoting. That kid took that thing over. That is an absolute gold mine. They paid for that building. Jerry Reinsdorf and the Wurzes, in 5 years, they paid for that whole building. They charged $1 jillion for those suites, and they got a gold mine there. And if it goes 7 games, it's just bigger gold mine.
Well, the franchise was always good. They just didn't have the money coming in from TV. They had no local contract, but they had no local contract when they sold the United Center, when Reisdorf and Wirtz got together. They got 185 suites. They signed all of them to 5-year contracts, paid for the building. So it was pretty good. But now, with Rocky coming in, being able to do the television, they're making a ton of money. But Chicago's always been a good hockey town. It's always been a terrific hockey town.
All red, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
All red, the whole crowd.
Any team in the Stanley Cup Finals is going to be like that.
Yeah, but it's I'm kind of rooting for the Blackhawks because I'm a big Hossa guy. I love Hossa. I think he's one of my favorite players.
Because why?
I love him.
Just because he's everybody gave him so much abuse when he left Detroit and he
went to Pittsburgh, went to Detroit, then went to Chicago.
He went to Pittsburgh looking for the cup and it didn't work out, and then he went to Chicago. But he took less money in Chicago than he could, a lot less money than he could have made
$2.5 million
anywhere else.
left.
Yes.
Louis, they won the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago, and they lost some key players, didn't they?
They lost nine of them.
Well, how do they rebuild so quick?
Well, the key is when your core is real good. That's what happened. That's why Edmonton won so many.
Don't lose your core, is what you're
Don't lose
saying.
the core. They didn't lose the core.
They're gonna. I heard you saying the other day, though, they're gonna have to give up that Chalmerson, the defense.
Yeah, I don't see.
He's a hell of a player.
I don't see how after this playoffs over and when Chalmerson's contract's up, you got all those young guys, Taves and Kane and Sharp and Hossa, and then you got your Keith and Seabrook on defense making money. Letty's contract will come up. How they're going to keep Yarmulson's going to command a lot of money.
I think what makes them different than everybody else is they got 5 really good defensemen.
Yeah.
Letty's kind of along for the ride, but they got 5 real good ones.
Yeah, Letty's coming along, but you're right. They got 5 solid defensemen there.
Yeah, Duncan Keith, he about beat the Wild by himself there a couple of
Well, he's the Norris Trophy winner.
Yeah.
And Seabrook's very good. And Yarmulson's probably the most underrated defenseman in the league. I mean, you got guys there that are exceptionally good players. And when you got that kind of defense and you got the kind of forwards with skill they have up front, I picked Chicago to win in 7. Then when Hossa got hurt, I said if Hossa doesn't come back, I think Boston will beat him. But then when he come back, I'll stick with Chicago in 7.
Sid still thinks it's about goaltending.
It's always about goaltending.
And pitching in baseball, right?
Yeah.
Take a break, come back. Stay with us. There it is, Bar Abilene. Stop. You saw the pictures there. It tells the story. Call for reservations, 825-2525. Stop on by. Look them up online. It is delicious anytime. Corner Lagoon and Fremont. Welcome back. A couple quick sad notes. Mike Hurd, outstanding amateur baseball player for years that I got to know well because he grew up in my area, passed away down in Green Isle, and from Green Isle, lived in Gaylord at the time, and that was a big blow to amateur baseball. And our condolences go out to Chris and the family. Vince Flynn passed away, an author that a lot of sports people knew, and Louis, you knew him very well.
Yeah, and my kids and he and his wife Lisa were very close friends. It was another tragedy, too young to die at 47 years old, and a very successful guy and a wonderful human being. And his wife's amazing lady, and they're having a funeral tomorrow at the cathedral in St. Paul.
Great author.
Your son Michael, who died, was sort of almost a mentor to him with the cancer situation.
Yeah, Vince dedicated that last book to my son Michael. He was an inspiration to him. They were both, going through this cancer situation together.
Every
Michael
time I ran across Vince, I couldn't believe that he was sick because he was still looking like prime time. He was still
just amazing.
Good-looking hunk.
And he had a great attitude, and he was confident. He kept battling. He just carried himself with such class and dignity. We lost a tremendous person.
Yeah, they said in his books, obviously speak for themselves, but they said the best fiction writer to ever come out of Minnesota, and somebody said, well, Sid with his autobiography. Twins won today.
Well, I didn't know him well. I knew him, but when he had a book signing, they'd line up all around the block.
All over the country,
He was a big favorite there.
Yeah.
I was telling Louis, Pat and Louis that John Sanford lived 2 doors away from my house in the St. Croix. And all of a sudden, they know he sold that house and left.
He's moving to San Jose.
Yep. Twins won today.
Yes, they did. Oswaldo Arcia, very good chance he's going to be the American League Rookie of the Year. It is not a good crop of rookies, and that kid can hit. He's going to put up some numbers before the year's over.
Didn't they draft him when he was like 16 years old?
I signed him out of Venezuela.
Yeah.
He's
Boy, a lot of players come out of Venezuela.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's why everybody's got their academies down there.
If Venezuela and the Dominican didn't exist, baseball would be in trouble.
If you go to Santo Domingo or Casa de Campo in the Dominican Republic, you drive down a road and you'll see ballparks with boulders on them, and these kids are playing.
Is that right?
It's amazing. And I said,
Pickup
that's
games,
why they're
you
such
mean?
good fielders. Yeah. That's why they can catch a ball there. They catch it anywhere, ground balls. It's
Why
amazing.
why would Fidel and his son Raul look around and not say, why don't we let them have our guys too, and maybe get a little fee to have them instead of having them slipping over here in a boat.
When are you going to draft those guys?
Well, they're not going to draft the Cubans, so I don't think they want to draft the Dominicans and the Venezuelans because they don't want to pay them that much money.
Louis,
They want to get them started at age 16.
Yeah.
When did hockey really become international besides Canada and America? When did they really start scouting?
The day Louis smuggled František Musil out in his trunk.
we had back, if you go back in the 70s, we had the three Stastnys come out of Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
At that time, hockey was international, but you'd have the pros weren't allowed to play in the Olympics or the World Championships. Once they were allowed to play there, then we were able to get their
Summit
players to play
Series
here.
changed everything. The
72
Summit
was the
Series.
biggest series of hockey that
Canada and
for
Russia.
the NHL ever, and it was
Really, that was the outgrowth?
and it was the finest hockey I've ever seen in my life. And that film, if you can get the Summit film, Summit Series film, that 8 games is the best hockey film you'll ever see.
Sidney, final thoughts?
I have no comment.
On the Summit Series?
He was at the Summit Series.
How about the Twins? Only 4 under. I'm surprised. 90 to go. They're 34 and 38.
Yeah, I guess I take that for this.
not
year.
great, but
you know, it just reminds you of kind of those mid-'90s teams, you know?
Kyle Gibson's going to pitch Saturday. He's coming up, so you can relax, folks, and stop complaining. He'll pitch Saturday.
You always worried, though, when everybody's talking about your minor leaguers and not your major leaguers, and that's where they're at. We'll see you back here next week. Thanks for watching the Sports Show. Have a good night. Have a good week, everybody. See you next week.